Hey guys, this is Vader back with another video. So this time, guys, I'm going to review the movie Cars 3. So this is going to be a movie review. This is going to be a spoiler review. So this is going to be like a full analysis video of the entire movie. We're going to go through the entire movie from beginning to end. So just for warning, there are spoilers in this movie. So in case you guys have never seen this movie yet, which I hope everyone has seen by now, just letting you know, there's spoilers. That's a bit major warning right now. So if you guys want to just leave this video, if you guys don't want any spoilers for Cars 3, so I'll give you 10 seconds, and then we'll get on to the full analysis. So, starting now. Okay, so at the beginning of the movie, we get McQueen getting ready for his race, such that we get a flashback to Doc Hudson and McQueen at Willie's Butte, and we hear Paul Newman as the voice of Doc Hudson, which was a very, very great thing. I gotta admit, hearing his voice again as Doc since the first one really brought back a lot of memories. It was a little emotional to me because I really like Doc Hudson, especially McQueen. So yeah, and then we get back to McQueen, back to the present, and then McQueen's about to get ready to go to the race, and so, and then that's where the music starts to play, like the main music for the beginning of the movie, and then we get McQueen on the racetrack, racing against Cal Weathers, Bobby Swift, and Brick Yarnley, and all the other stock Piston Cup racers, the older ones, and so, and then we get the Cars 3 logo, and then we just see all these races going on. We see McQueen win a race at the Moore Speedway of the South, which was the racetrack at the beginning of the movie of Cars 1. The beginning of Cars 1. And then we get into another race, and then we see Cal Weathers win, which is the Piston Cup racer for Diaco. And throughout these races, at the beginning of the movie, for like the first 10 minutes, at least, we see they're joking around, pulling pranks at each other, everything, having fun, making everybody enjoy themselves, everything. So it's basically like McQueen said after his victory in the first race that we see in the movie, that it's all about the friendship as such, that's keeping them going with these races as such, and not trying to beat each other as such. It's more of having the fun of it, having the fun of racing against each other as such. So yeah, and then we get to another race, which brings in the introduction of Jackson Storm, the main antagonist of Cars 3. He is he's actually the first next generation Piston Cup racers that ever to arrive in the racing series, like the racing season. And so McQueen's about to win. He's like they're on like the final lap. McQueen's in the lead, along with Bobby Swift and Cal Weathers right behind him. And then Jackson Storm just comes out of nowhere and just beats McQueen out of nowhere within the last few seconds of the race, and really beats him. It shocks everybody. And so we see McQueen going up to Jackson Storm and meeting him and such. After Bobby Swift and Cal Weathers explained to McQueen that he was one of the new rookies to the Piston Cup racing, and so McQueen's going to see what's going on, and so he goes up to congratulate Jackson on his win. And then McQueen starts to realize that Jackson Storm is not really a friendly racer. He's not really friendly at all. He's like, yeah, no idea what a pleasure it is for me to finally beat you, type of a character. So, yeah, we see Jackson Storm as a really rude character, like a really mean and rude character in this movie, like a jerk, basically. Throughout this entire movie, so yeah, he's basically tried to get rid of McQueen, like knock him out of the racing season because of him being faster than McQueen. So yeah, and then he starts being sarcastic about McQueen, essentially like, hey, let's get a picture of the both of us, and saying that for a lot of years he's been his inspiration for racing, like a lot of years and all that jazz, and just being sarcastic about Lightning McQueen, and with McQueen getting this like what face? Like, he's all confused as such, and he's like, are you being serious right now, or why are you dreaming like this? Kind of look as such, and he's all puzzled and confused about what's going on. And then for the next few minutes, we see the stock cars, the stock racers, retiring. Like more and more of them retiring and such, get kicked out of their sponsorships, everything. We see Cal Weathers retire. We don't exactly see Bobby Swift retire, but he does retire. Brick Yardley retires. We've seen that. Him talking to the sponsor in the background and such. And then Lighting McQueen, he's there. He runs into Dave Swervez, which is the next generation racer for Octane Game, which was the sponsorship for Bobby Swift. So he was trying to find Bobby to find out what's going on with everybody. Why is everybody leaving? And so he wasn't today, which he did not expect. So yeah, throughout these 5 minutes, 5, 4, 3 minutes, we find most of these racers retiring and such and all that. And it's kind of sad. A little bit of a sad moment for McQueen because he's all confused and puzzled about what's going on. Like, you get to see all this coming to him and everything, all very fast and quick. And so, yeah. And then we get introduced to Natalie Certain during this fiasco. And Chick Hicks, which is a great return to the franchise for this movie. He's like a RSN sponsor now, like a RSN reporter now. Chick Hicks is now. And so yeah, that's way to really get involved with racing and continuing with the racing sports. So yeah, and then we get to now a certain Chick. They're both together in this program, TV program, and they're talking about how Jackson's story, these next generation racers are way more better and faster and such. And so yeah, really proves that how more great of these racers are against McQueen and these other older cars. And she explains how these older cars are getting older, they're getting slower, they got as fast, and so they're retiring. More and more of them are retiring. It all gets pinned down to just one left, which is Lightning McQueen. And so yeah, and then of course we get the last races of the season. And McQueen's all puzzled, like wonder where everybody's at. Such, he's like, and then Jackson comes up to him and says, "Hey Chip, where all your friends go, man?" So he was being all sarcastic as usual. And then the race starts. And so towards in the very last lap of the race, McQueen crashes. McQueen has this big crash because he was trying to stay in the lead, to try to get up to being Jackson Storm. He was trying to get in the lead, get in front of him, but there's no way he was going to be able to do that because he's not as fast as him. And so, yeah, he crashes. And then we span to like 4 months later, back in Radiator Springs. And then we find McQueen in Doc Hudson's old garage where all his stuff, where all his piston cups were, everything in Cars 1. Well, that's all cleaned out. That's all nice and near, cleaner now. And then McQueen's like a prime color. He's like they call him like the prime Lightning McQueen, like a primer Lightning McQueen. He was like all gray, and then his number 5 number on the side was red, and that was the only different color that was on him. So he was basically all gray, everything for those 4 months. And he's like watching old clips of Doc Hudson's races, and so this one in particular he was watching had Doc Hudson's fatal crash, which ended his racing career. And so yeah, and then Sally comes in and tries to motivate him to get back into the racing season because this next season starts in 2 weeks. And so he's trying to train and such, and now he's motivated to get back into the racing. And so he goes to the Rusty's Racing Fair, and then he is introduced to Sterling, which is a new sponsor for McQueen. He bought Rusty's from Dusty and Rusty, which are 2 other returning characters, which was great. And so they leave because they sold Rusty's to Sterling. And so Sterling shows McQueen all this collectible stuff that he's collected over the years for McQueen because Sterling is a big fan of Lightning McQueen. And so we see all this great artifacts and such for the past, which was a really great thing for the fans of Cars, like remembering what Cars 1 was and what we saw in the first one all those years ago. And so yeah, then we get introduced to Cruz Ramirez, which is basically the trainer of Lightning McQueen. And so we you find out a lot more about Cruz towards the later end of the movie. A lot of big things happening with Cruz, which is great. She was a great character, I gotta admit. She was one of my favorite characters in this movie, along with McQueen, as usual. And so, and then Cruz starts training McQueen, and well, that doesn't go very well. Because Cruz is getting McQueen to do all this new tech stuff and such. He's not exactly used to all that. He's used to doing the old way of going outside and racing out these dirt tracks, everything like Doc did. And so, yeah. That didn't go too well. If they tried using the racing simulator, which was a bust for McQueen, he ended up crashing. And so, yeah, and making all the power go out. He literally crashed into the simulator. He basically drove right into the simulator, which was pretty funny. It was really hilarious. The entire power rig of the entire. How am I supposed to say this? All the power to the racing center went out. So it was basically like a power outage. And so after that, Sterling goes up to, not Sterling, Lighting McQueen goes to Sterling's office and such, and talks to Sterling about all this great merchandise that Sterling brought out for McQueen, because after witnessing him crashing to the simulator, he was proven to have McQueen retire, which McQueen doesn't want to retire, which I can understand why, because if I were him, I wouldn't want to retire. Especially when you don't feel like you're done racing, because McQueen doesn't feel like he was to become what Doc Hudson ended up becoming, because Doc didn't have the choice to retire. He was basically forced to. So McQueen doesn't want to be. This doesn't want to happen to him. So he doesn't really want this to happen to him. And so he's trying to convince Sterling to give him one last chance at racing until he is fully decided that he wants to retire. So, yeah. Sterling gives him one more chance, and that is the Florida 500 in Florida. And so, yeah. And then he is told by Sterling that he has to bring someone with him, which is Cruz Ramirez. And so we find Cruz and Lightning training on the Fireball Beach, which is great. That was a great scene, especially with the animation. The animation was great in that scene in particular, and throughout this entire movie, the animation was wonderful. Really introduces the brand new animation that Disney Pixar have now today, in which they told us they were going to use for future Disney Pixar movies like Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, etc. So after that, because one major thing in this scene was the fact that Cruz was being introduced to driving on dirt and sand and such. And she wasn't very good at that at first. And so it took them an entire day to get her to know how to drive on the dirt, which McQueen was kind of angry about that. He was kind of upset about that because he was wanting to concentrate on training. Instead of more, he was concentrating on helping out Cruz. And so, yeah. And so they head off to Thunder Hollow, which they had to find out is a demolition derby. And so they thought it was like just an abandoned racetrack, because there's 3 racetracks that still exist that Doc used to race on. And that was the Fireball Beach, the Thunder Hollow Speedway, the Thunder Hollow Speedway, and Thomasville. And so they go to Thunder Hollow. They think they're going to be going out of this racetrack of training and such. Cruz goes out there unexpectedly, because McQueen didn't expect Cruz to come out with him to train him. And so they end up finding out a little too late that it ends up being a Thunder Hollow demolition derby race. And so they tried to get out, but they got allowed to. So, especially for Cruz, which ended up being kind of screwed, because she was going there as a trainer, not exactly a racer. And so that's when they meet Miss Frigger, the monster school bus. And so, yeah. In my opinion, when I first saw Miss Frigger like pictures of Miss Fur months ago. I really thought of her as the new Frank, the next Frank for Cars 3, basically, because remember Cars 1 with Frank? That's why I thought of Miss Fur, the Frank character for Cars 3. So in that sense, she kind of was Frank, but not exactly, but it's still good enough. So they show off the race for the Demolition Derby and everything, and Cruz Ramirez ends up winning that race. And so, and there's a water truck thing that tips over. It sprays water all over Lighting McQueen. And that's when his disguise, aka Chester Whipple Filter, that's what his fake name was, because he wanted to go in there in disguise and not get confronted by reporters and everything. And so that doesn't go as planned, and so he gets rinsed on the mud that was on him as his disguise gets rinsed off, and that's when he is exposed as his true self, Lightning McQueen, to the entire audience of the Thunderhawk Demolition Derby race. And so he ends up being on the news, aka Chick Hicks' RSM program, Chick's Picks with Chick Hicks. He ends up being on that news program. And that was a great way for Chick Hicks to just make fun of McQueen even more. They already was. So yeah. And so afterwards, McQueen's all mad at Cruz because he keeps having a big fuss over not being able to race again and everything. He said why he was expecting Cruz to train her more and such. Instead, McQueen's keeping an eye on Cruz and taking care of Cruz more than having her train McQueen. And so, and that's when we find out about Cruz's backstory, which it was very, very sad, very touching, and I gotta admit, very emotional. Because she says to McQueen that all she ever wanted to be was a racer and not a trainer. That she never dreamed of being a trainer, but instead a racer. And so, yeah. It was very touching, I gotta admit. And it made me really feel for the character. Like, wow. And so she leaves because she kind of felt sad about being treated that way by McQueen. And so McQueen, of course, goes and tries to get Cruz back. But before we get to that, we go back to Radiator Springs with Mater and such. And so McQueen calls Mater on his iPad or ice screen or something. They're like basically live streaming each other. And so he was talking to Mater about what to do and such. And Mater gives him some advice about going to find Doc Hudson's old trainer, Smokey. And so they go to Thomasville. And so before they go to Thomasville, McQueen goes to get Cruz back. And so yeah, he just started dancing and such, like stretching the old wheels, everything like Cruz was trying to teach him back at the racing center. So he convinced Cruz to come back with them. And so they go to Thomasville, and they enter the Thomasville Speedway. And so they do like one lap around the track, and that's when Cruz learns how to do the turn right to go left lesson that Doc taught McQueen in Cars 1. And that's when they meet Smokey, Doc's old trainer. And so Smokey takes McQueen and Cruz to this old bar, which is where they meet some other racers that raced with Doc back in the day. And they talk about stories. They tell McQueen and Cruz stories about Doc during his racing days. And so Smokey tells McQueen and Cruz about a time where he used this big rare trick where he got one side of his wheels onto the wall of the racetrack and jumped over his competitor, which was a rookie back in the day. They had to face because Doc was able to get past everybody else but that one guy, and so but that one new rookie. And so he was able to flip over him, and they landed back on the track in the lead, and he ends up winning. And so, yeah. And then Smokey takes McQueen to an old room, like an old closet or garage type deal. It shows McQueen some newspaper articles he had stapled onto the wall, like pinned onto his billboard. And so, on an old billboard, and then that's where Smokey tells McQueen that the happiest thing that Doc had in his life was teaching McQueen as a coach, being a coach for McQueen. And so racing, because McQueen thought Doc racing was the best thing that happened to Doc, but Smokey realized that wasn't the true thing. And so the true reason why he was happy for racing, happy to do racing and such. He was enjoying racing. Smokey said that he did enjoy racing, but that's not the happiest thing that he's ever done in his life, and that was coaching like McQueen when he met McQueen in Cars 1. So yeah, that's very touching as well. And so we get some more flashbacks of McQueen and Doc racing on Willis Butte as such, and back at Radiator Springs basically as such for the last 2 years that he was alive after Cars 1. So yeah, pretty sad. Pretty emotional and sad because knowing that Paul Newman died and Doc Hudson died really was depressing. Yeah, it was very touching, especially for McQueen because he remembers those memories and he wishes that Doc was there to help him. And so that's when McQueen tells Smokey that he needs his help to learn how to not become what Doc Hudson became. And so because he doesn't want to quit racing. And so he basically asks Smokey for his help to train him to know how to beat Jackson Storm. And so yeah, of course, Smokey, he takes McQueen to these old courses and such, like Thomasville Speedway. They train on that racetrack. They train in the forest. They train on the old hills in Guido, throwing hay bales and all kinds of stuff at him. They go through, Cruz and Lightning go through a course where there's a bunch of tractors all around them, and so they opened the window to get through the pack of tractors and such. And so, and then after that, during the night, they go into a forest and the woods and such at night, and they use their instincts on which direction to go, everything, know when to turn right or left and such, and all that. And then after that, they do one last race on the Thomasville Speedway, and so Cruz ends up beating McQueen, and then McQueen's all sad and such because he's still getting beaten. He's not fast enough, and so they go to Florida for the Florida 500. For the first few laps, which is aka a couple of minutes, like 5 minutes, McQueen does race, but until up to the point where Sterling tells Cruz to go back to the races there, he realizes that Cruz is the one that should be out there on the racetrack racing instead of himself. So, and then seconds after that, he basically wakes up after having this flashbacks of him talking to Cruz and such about her wanting to be a racer and everything, and then he wakes up and then boom, there's a big wreck going on, and so there's a car crashing and like swerving everywhere in front of him, and so he's evading all these crashed cars, everything, getting out of the way, trying to avoid getting crashed himself. And so half the pack of the Piston Cup racers are down at this big wreck, and so they take a break, like a little break, it's basically a restart, like a lap restart. And so that's what Lightning tells Smokey to get Cruz back to the pit stop so he could get Cruz out there racing. And so when he gets to the pit stop, he tells everybody to get Cruz ready to race and not him. And so Guido puts the racing tires on her. Ramon gets his art sprayers out to spray a 95 on Cruz. And the paint job on Cruz was great. I really loved that paint job on Cruz with the 95 and the Rusty's in her name in red and blue and such. It was a really cool design. I loved that. And so after that, McQueen ends up becoming the crew chief. And so he's telling Cruz advice on what to do and how to really get better. And so while having her on the racetrack, he tell her what to do and such. And eventually she gets through the entire pack and ends up getting right behind Jackson Storm, which tried to make Cruz slow down by give her negative thoughts and such, give her negative comments and such about her and such. And that didn't work because she had to get right behind Jackson, drafting him. And so for the entire final lap, until she has to get to the side, she has to almost really close to the lead, and so the Jackson rams Cruz into the wall. And that's when she decides to use that old trick that Doc used way back when, and then she gets onto the wall and then leaps over, jumps and leaps, leaps over Jackson. And that's why everybody was like gasping, like what? They were surprised, they were shocked because they didn't know that she was going to do that. So, yeah, Cruz ends up winning the race. So, yeah. Number 95 wins once again. It strikes again. And so, after that, Tex and the King, which showed up in the beginning of the movie as Cal Weathers' crew chief, and was the Diaco racer at Cars 1. He shows up as well. And Tex is basically trying to talk Cruz into becoming the next generation Diaco racer, which is really, really cool. And Sterling, well, he's trying to keep McQueen because he basically lost Cruz because he realized that he was all wrong about Cruz never being a racer and not possibly ever being a racer and such. He was wrong about that. He realized that, and so he was trying to get Cruz to be the next generation racer for Rusty's. And so she disagreed on that. She declined that offer, and so she ends up accepting the offer to Diaco. And that's what Lightning confirms the biggest question that we ever had for this movie was Lightning McQueen going to retire? And so he confirms that he is still going to continue racing, but before he does, he has one other thing he wants to do before he does that. And so that ends up being Lightning McQueen becoming Cruz's crew chief. And so at the end of the movie, we see Diaco Cruz Ramirez, and Cruz Ramirez with her Diaco paint job, and that is also when we see Lightning McQueen show off his brand new recent paint job, which really brings back memories of the Fabulous Hudson Hornet because his paint job was inspired by the Fabulous Hudson Hornet himself. And so we see on the side of McQueen saying the Fabulous Lightning McQueen. On the back, saying for Doc Hudson, it has Rusty's all over, like on the back and on the front. And on the top of him, he's got his number 95 numbers on all four quarters, like Doc Hudson did. And so, yeah, the Fabulous Lightning McQueen, for sure. That was like one of the greatest parts of that movie was seeing that because that is one of my favorite paint jobs of Lightning McQueen. I gotta admit, the dark blue is basically a Lightning McQueen. But Doc Hudson, basically. So he put that paint job as an inspiration from Doc to keep a little bit of Doc alive in reality. So yeah, and then that's basically the movie. And so they start Cruz and Lightning race against each other around Willis Butte. That Lightning also tells them that Tex Diaco bought Rusty's from Sterling. So Diaco owns Diaco and Rusty's now. So yeah. And so that's basically the movie. And then the movie ends up with some great music. And I gotta admit, great movie. I had to admit, in my opinion. So yeah. Whew. So that's basically the analysis of this movie for Cars 3. So, in my opinion, I really, really liked this movie. I really did. And I think it's great. It is as great as Cars 1 was. Just a little bit lower than Cars 1 because the beginning, the first 10 minutes, I think was a little rushed. I think for this movie, I think the first 10 minutes should be extended to like 25 minutes, like the previous season with the old racers and such, like Cal Weathers and Bobby and Brick Yardley. I think that should be extended out to like 25 minutes. I think because we didn't get enough screen time with those characters, especially when we got like diecast toys of those characters, and we didn't see that much of them in the movie. So yeah, I think that should be extended out a little bit. But other than that, this movie was really great. I gotta admit. Cruz Ramirez, gotta talk a little bit about her. She was a great character. Really loved her character, especially towards the end of the movie where We find out about her backstory and the fact that she ended up becoming a racer in the Ford 500 as of winning the race. And so yeah, Jackson Storm, his character was also a great character as well, a great villain for Cars 3. Really similar to Chick Hicks, but worse. And also similar to Lightning McQueen in Cars 1, at the beginning of Cars 1, because if you remember Cars 1 with Lightning McQueen, he was also a little bit jerky as well, as such, and only cared about himself. But this was way worse. Jackson Storm was way worse than McQueen ever was. And so yeah. Gotta admit, great look for a villain. Great description for a villain. It really shows the villainous side of Jackson Storm as a villain. So great villain for Cars 3. Great job, Disney Pixar, for making a great villain. If for Vader and the Raiders Springs characters like Sally, Guido, Luigi, all those characters, they had a good enough amount of screen time in this movie. They had some screen time during some of the races. In the Raiders Springs scenes, obviously. At the end of the movie, during the Ford 500, at the pit stop. So they had some great screen time. Mayor, let's talk about Mayor for a little bit. I know that because Cars 2 with Mayor, Mayor was basically the main character of Cars 2. So now a lot of people liked the idea. So for Cars 3, they really dragged down the amount of screen time for Mayor. And that was great because I know Mayor as the best friend of McQueen, and such. He's basically a side character. And so this is a good amount of screen time for a side character, I gotta admit. They did a great job with that. They did way better for that, with that character, with the character of Mayor. So yeah, they did a way better job with that. And they also did a great job with Lightning McQueen. Continuing with the story, because this franchise, this Cars franchise, is basically Lightning McQueen's storyline. It's basically his entire life. And so, yeah, because with Cars 1, McQueen was the main character, the most concentrated character of that movie. Cars 3 is also the main concentration of McQueen's racing career. And so, yeah, great job with Lightning McQueen. He also had multiple paid jobs in this movie, way more than he ever had in previous movies. He had one at the beginning of the movie, up till his crash. He had his primer version of him for like a few minutes. And then he ends up having his Florida 500 paid job that we see at the end of the movie. Then he has his Rusty's Racing Sarah paid job. And then at the end of the movie, he has his Fabulous Hudson McQueen paid job. So he had a lot of paid jobs in this movie. A lot more than I thought he would ever have. And so, yeah. Gotta stretch a little bit because I've been talking for like half an hour now. Or it's more than half an hour now. And so, yeah. Gotta admit, Cars 3 was a great movie. I gotta admit. And so I'm gonna rate this movie a 9 out of 10. So that's right, guys. You just heard the rating for this movie, 9 out of 10. That's basically a A-, B+. And so, and I've seen a lot of other reviews for this movie, and they were basically a mix. There were some people that hated it. Some people that said it was okay of a movie. There were some people that liked it, and there were some people that loved it. And so, I'm one of those people that liked it and loved it. So yeah. Because I've always been a big fan of the Cars franchise, so yeah. Gotta admit, great movie. It's great as Cars 1. It was way better than Cars 2. And so yeah, it was a great improvement for the Cars 3 franchise. Not Cars 3, the Cars franchise itself. The improvement that this franchise really needed to get back, to have it be back as full throttle strength. Like at the beginning with the first one, where there was only the Cars 1, because Cars 1 really introduced the franchise as a great franchise. Not the most powerful and most emotional Disney Pixar franchise ever, but it really introduced the franchise as a great, strong franchise. And so when Cars 2 came out, that really dropped. It really failed the franchise a lot, and so it really gave the franchise a lot of negative comments. And so I think Cars 3 really is going to help that franchise improve way more instead of decline more. And so yeah. Sterling. Let's talk about some more characters now. Let's talk about Smokey and Sterling. Smokey, let's get to Smokey first. He was a great character. He really did show a lot of backstory, especially for Doc Hudson. So we learned a lot more about Doc Hudson from Smokey. And so mostly that's really it for Smokey. But he was a great character. I gotta admit, I really liked his character as well. And the fact that he brought more backstory to Doc was a really big thing, especially for me, because I also really like Doc Hudson. So yeah. So nothing much about Smokey other than that, because we don't see him that much in the movie. And for Sterling, he was basically a great secondary villain, because he was kind of a villain and kind of a good guy at the same time, because he was kind of trying to get rid of McQueen. He tried to kick him out of his racing career, and basically having McQueen become a brand in merchandise instead of having a race. And of course, Lightning McQueen did want that. And so that's kind of like a villainous type of thing. And so, of course, at the end of the movie, he was trying to kick Cruz out of the racetrack. Essentially, he tried to prevent Cruz from going on the racetrack, because he really believes Cruz is a trainer and not a racer. And so that kind of made Cruz feel bad. And then when Lightning breaks is telling Smokey to bring her back, and when they were trying to basically get ready to race, Sterling was basically like, I don't want this, I don't want you going on the racetrack as such. And he was basically trying to get Cruz to listen to him and not McQueen. And so obviously McQueen ends up winning that battle between the two. And so yeah, battling the two wits. So yeah, he was a great secondary villain, and is kind of a secondary good guy. So yeah, and the returning characters like Dusty and Rusty, Chick Hicks, the King, Tex Statico, those were great returns for this movie. It was really great seeing Chick Hicks again, because I've always liked the comedy that he always brought from Cars 1. The King, great to see him again. We didn't get to see him that much of this movie, but we got to see him a little bit. So it was great to see him again. Tex Statico, always great to see him again. Dusty and Rusty, always wonderful to see them again, because I know one of the voice actors for one of the two passed away a few years ago. So yeah, very sad about that as well. So yeah, great returns for this movie for Cars 1. Great character passovers from Cars 1 to Cars 3. So yeah, really shows those characters' evolution and what they've ended up becoming, sort of. So yeah. So overall, that's probably going to conclude this review. I don't really have much to say other than that, other than I hope that eventually they'll get a Cars 4, because I feel like the ending of the Cars 3 movie left a little bit of an opening for a Cars 4 possibility. So if the merchandise remains as what it is right now for Cars merchandise, the Disney Pixar are probably going to make a Cars 4, because the Cars franchise has been really successful because of the merchandise, the toys and everything, all the merchandise that they've brought out for Cars. And so yeah, that's why they kept making Cars movies like Cars 2 and Cars 3, because of the merchandise, basically. And so yeah. So overall, I give this movie a 9 out of 10 as my rating. It's my second favorite Cars movie, right next to Cars 1, because Cars 1 is always going to be my number one favorite out of the three. And so yeah, so that's going to be it, guys. So be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below on my channel. And I'll see you guys in another video. I got a Star Wars review, which I'll do pretty soon, because I got 2 new sets now, so from the Summer Wave, so I'll be reviewing those really soon. Those should be coming out like this weekend or Monday, or sometime next week. And so, yeah, or an update video or anything like that. So yeah, so have a great day, guys. Bye.